What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When you look at Kelvin Benjamin, guys, he's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
It's not the Dallas Cowboys, but it's a start.
You love this. And then.
Oh, the Denver Broncos.
Go!
Now stay tuned for 6 hours of exciting football action. Woohoo!
Bears trying to cross midfield.
Hey!
Well, football season's over, but Adam and I are going to keep it rolling as long as we can, at least until it gets really nice outside, I think. So this week we got a couple of topics. Sit back, relax, and enjoy, won't you?
They called him the Galloping Gazelle. His habitat the frozen tundra of Soldier Field. For 6 seasons and 2 Pro Bowls, he grazed on the tasty green turf of the end zone. Until one fateful Sunday in November, when the Gazelle was stopped in his tracks by a big cat named Wayne Krzyzewski.
Want to come with me and Wally to the Super Bowl?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite team's in it. The Atlanta Falcons.
I'm exhausted. Straight off the couch.
Yeah, it's kind of an exhausting time of year, isn't it? I'm, of course, Terry, and let me bring in my broadcast partner, the ever-affable and effervescent Adam Whytall. Hey, Adam, how's it going, brother?
You know, Terry, I really like our talks every weekend, and I keep asking myself, I wonder if football misses me as much as I miss it.
Well, we're only one weekend. It's still out partying with all its other friends.
We have 29 weeks until the football season starts again. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is. It is, dude. I don't know. I might not make it.
I think this episode, a lot of people are, that are in love with football like we are going to find ways to cope with it. We find ways to cope with it every year. The days are getting longer. Well, not in the number sense, but the daylight hours are getting longer, which makes it a little easier to cope with.
More sunshine helps. Yeah.
Yeah, when the sun's setting at 4:00 in the afternoon, it's not such a fun time, is it?
No, it sucks. It really does.
You're just like, oh, we're starting the late window on Sunday and it's dark out. It's just like, is this the primetime game?
See, and I live in the U.S. Central Time Zone, right? But I'm on the far eastern edge of the U.S. Central Time Zone. So when they roll the clocks back in the fall for daylight savings time, which is the dumbest fucking thing ever, by the way. I'm not a fan of the daylight savings program. It was useful 100 years ago, but now we have electric lights. We can stop that shit any minute now. But because I'm on the far eastern edge, when the daylight savings rolls over, because the central time zone is fairly wide across the northern continent, it gets dark here about 4:15 in November and December and January.
Yeah, Midwest, that's a large area to cover.
And I sit here at my desk and I look out the window and I go, oh my God, it's only 4:10 and where's the fucking sun already?
So I feel that too. We don't get as bad as 4:15, but 4:30 it's definitely dark out when it comes November, December. Well, I guess it's like December 21st. That's the shortest daylight hours of the year.
Correct.
And you really notice it then.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes almost all of, not quite all, but almost all of January for you to notice it's after 5 o'clock and it's still daylight out.
Yeah, so today, for example, it was after 6 when we had the sun setting, which I was just like, oh, thank goodness.
And it was, here it was nice. It was 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is, like 6 Celsius, 7 Celsius.
Wow, you got a warm one.
Yeah, it's been pretty warm here lately, so...
We were about 29 Fahrenheit today, so
are you like me because you deal with so many different people? I have 2 weather apps on my phone, and one I set to Celsius and one I set to Fahrenheit. That way I don't have to do the conversion math when I'm talking to my European friends.
I'm kind of bilingual when it comes to the metric and imperial systems.
Oh, you're lucky. Not me. I have to have 2 separate
only
deals.
Because I've dealt with so many Americans over the last 20 years that I had to start converting it, and then you just kind of figure out the math on your own, okay, 70 degrees Fahrenheit is 19 degrees Celsius. Okay, you just you start seeing the same numbers and patterns, and you figure it out.
See, and I also have this innate ability to time zone. Tell you, Paris is 7 hours ahead of us. I can tell by looking at my clock right now that it's 1:01 in the morning in Paris. Just just the math automatically rolls into my head.
So I have that on a couple different areas, but most of the time I just use the world clock on my phone to figure out what time it is somewhere else.
Paris, Italy, Germany, I have that pretty well down pat. The UK is 6 hours, not 7, so I got that down pat. The ones where it throws me off is when I have to deal with somebody in like the Pacific Rim, Australia or Singapore. Remember Spinna J, our former moderator friend?
Yes.
I talked to him quite a bit back in the day. And
that's like a 14-hour difference.
18.
He's 18?
He's 18 ahead of me.
That's wild.
Yeah, and that one I had trouble with because the concept of somebody being 18 hours ahead of me is just
when it gets past the 12 mark, that's where it gets confusing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week Adam said, not this week, last week of his show, Adam says, "Hey, put together a list of 5 favorite football movies." So
yeah, let's start figuring out what. I'll be honest. We talked about a lot of different things in the last week's episode. I said, do they really need another Planet of the Apes movie because we got that SuperBowl commercial?
Apparently we do.
As we get deeper into this episode, I'll actually tell you if we do or not, because I did some research based on our previous podcast.
Oh well, there you go. I mean, yeah, that's what you got to do. So start with your number 5.
So my number 5, do you want to go 1 for 1 on this?
Yeah, let's just trade back and forth. Your number 5.
All right. My number 5 football movie, Remember the Titans.
That's a good one.
It's a Disney movie, so it's kind of Disneyed up.
It's formulaic.
It's a good football movie.
It's formulaic a little bit.
It's got some young talent. A lot of actors that you'll notice that grew up, like Opie from Sons of Anarchy was the captain, the defensive tackle.
Am I a sick individual because you said it's got some talent and I'm thinking young hot chicks?
Oh, wrong kind of talent. This isn't a Hooters.
My number 5 is Necessary Roughness.
Oh, great movie.
Scott Bakula.
Yeah, that's an older one, but it's definitely holds up.
Yeah, the one detractor for me is Sinbad's in it.
So, I have ups and downs with all the movies that are on my list, just because. Well, we'll get into it as we get to the movies, but Remember the Titans. That's my number 5, and it's more about the racial boundary line being crossed, like white and blacks being blended together in schools, more than it is football. But the football aspect of it is pretty awesome.
One of the movies on my list has a similar situation. When we get there,
they've got that ethical storyline that kind of sets the tone for the entire movie.
No, it's been a long time since I've seen it, and I didn't watch it more than once, so my memory is a little vague. Is it preachy or no?
No, it's not preachy. I think because it's a Disney movie, and Denzel is, obviously he's the older black coach moving into a white town, where the white town is all about white football. We're talking late 60s, early 70s, I believe the timeline is, right? So that racial, that whole Vietnam kind of vibe.
And in 68, there were still pretty heavy race riots going on. So.
Yeah, there was a lot. Well, I mean, the Vietnam conflict was like, that's where the white people...
It was still going on until 72, 73. So
yeah, the whites were believed that that's the only place that the blacks belonged was as expendable soldiers in Vietnam. So there was a huge thing there. So they made a big I don't even know what it's an ethical statement, I guess, is what they're making.
It was that What I'm getting at was that like a subplot, or was that like the overplot?
That was
the subplot. Was football.
more. That was more the story of the movie than the football part.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
the football parts of it, the way they did it was pretty awesome. And then you got to see players develop. You know, white players and the black players didn't like each other because that's how they were brought up, and they're blended together, and they didn't want to be blended together, and then they learned to be brothers and work as a team. Which brings in the football stuff, which makes it a pretty awesome football movie. But it's a very profound, racially targeted movie. Like, hey, let's break down some borders.
Cool. What's your number 4?
So I'm going completely opposite on this one. So I went from very serious, like, oh, we're making a social statement, to The Waterboy.
There's nothing wrong with the movie The Waterboy. I've watched it enough that I can probably quote 90% of it verbatim. And John Howard's always bringing up the foosball is the devil every chance he gets.
It just reminds me of the Cleveland Browns for some reason.
It does.
But if the Cleveland Browns were in Louisiana,
right. My number 4 is it's based on a book from 1973, North Dallas 40, Nick Nolte and Mac Davis.
Oh yeah! Wow, you're bringing up all. Do they hold up? Have you watched them lately?
I have watched North Dallas 40 recently. It was semi-autobiographical, written by a wide receiver who played for the Dallas Cowboys, and it gets into how the teams manipulates the players to, not use illegal drugs, but use team-prescribed drugs to get over whatever hump you need to get over to perform on the football field. And then they got into the social lives of the players and how that, the drug use between the white lines affected their personal lives and just the wear and tear it took on a body. There's one scene where Nick Nolte's trying to get out of bed, and it takes him like 5 minutes of film time to get all the creaks and the groans and his knees moving and his hips going and just to get out of bed. And then he hobbles into the training facility where they shoot him up with lidocaine and send him out on the field for practice.
Yeah, that sounds like a football movie to me.
Yeah, and it's it's a really good movie. Like
Give me one of them cortisone shots, Coach.
Yeah.
Or Doc or whatever.
I find it entertaining simply because, this is in the 70s, 1974. Imagine what they're doing to him now.
Oh, yeah. So I have a huge, long list of great football movies, and I wish I could fit them all. Like, we could literally do a top 20.
Yeah, we got to keep it fairly trimmed down.
We got to keep it fresh. So you've got that. I went to the complete opposite of you. I said The Waterboy. So I'm going to even it out at number 3. My number 3 is Any Given Sunday.
Yeah, and
it's a long movie. I watched it last night, by the way.
Did you? See, I like the movie, and I think it's visually very stunning. But I don't like that what's the director's name? I forgot the director.
Oliver Stone.
Stone as the color analyst is way over the fucking top.
Oliver Stone does some really fucked up shit with all of his movies. I don't know why he has to do that first person on acid perspective. Like, it seems like every movie he does, some player is on some hallucinogenic. It's like, from the player's eyes, and he's like everything's spinning and the colors, and it's just like
he's a big conspiracy guy. He directed the JFK movie, and that leans hard into the conspiracy. He directed the Doors movie, which my good friend,
all the same.
My good friend Jim Reardon wrote the book, and they got the film rights for that Doors movie.
He also directed Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers.
And you remember what kind of movie that was?
Way over the top, up front. He leans hard into the conspiracy stuff.
Yeah. So Any Given Sunday has some great moments in it. It's a good movie. Al Pacino. I mean, LL Cool J. Like, come on. In like 1999 it's like 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in there.
He was pretty jacked in that. Yeah.
Yeah, like Cool J. Looking good. And then, we got Jamie Foxx before he was like super Jamie Foxx, before he was betmgm.com or whatever.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx before he became Ray. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Before he became Ray Charles, and he went off the deep end, right.
So as great as a director as Oliver Stone is, there is one shot in this movie that drives me nuts, and it's where Jamie Foxx's character, Willie Beeman, Steamin' Willie Beeman, finally comes to as a quarterback, and he throws a really long bomb, and they have this nice shot from basically a linebacker's perspective of him throwing the ball, and they hired somebody that could throw a ball, but they kind of zoom in on his face, and you can tell it's not Jamie Foxx in that suit.
Now, there's right before that particular scene you're talking about, there's a montage where they show the previous quarterback, Dennis Quaid. It's obviously his last gasp at playing, and that montage they use me.
Yeah, discount Harrison Ford is definitely.
and the way they use me for that montage is pretty cool, pretty well done.
Yeah, that whole movie's just great on how the story's told on, it's like the old 38-year-old quarterback, and 38's not really that old, but for a sports player
in the NFL it is
very physical.
In the NFL it is.
Yeah, like you're a dinosaur.
Well, my number 3 movie, I went back. We're kind of going opposite. Where you're going serious, I'm going lighthearted. Where you're going lighthearted, I'm going serious. My number 3 is Keanu Reeves, The Replacement.
Okay, so we can talk about this because that's my number 2.
Oh, well, see, segue. Keanu is a natural southpaw. So they had to teach him how to play the position as a southpaw.
Yes.
So that's kind of fun to watch, just knowing the mechanics they had to go into that. But I kind of... The Replacements is loosely based on the 1987 players' strike the NFL went through.
So this is the part of the movie that I love so much. As the replacement players are coming off the bus and eggs are getting thrown at the bus.
Right.
And they're being called scabs, and the bus is getting rocked, and a player breaks the window, smashes on the window, like they're pissed that they've got their jobs taken, even though they chose to strike.
Right.
If you go back to the 1987 players' strike in Washington, so these are the Washington Sentinels,
right?
Washington Redskins. There's so many similarities.
Well, back during that players' strike. Some teams went out and just rented or bought full-on semi-pro teams to play. Some teams went out and they would do, like for the Bears, for example, brought in everybody that they'd cut previously and says, here's your shot. You're not a member of the Players Association because you were cut. Come and play football. And some teams, was it Denver? There was one team where all the players decided to cross the picket line.
There was quite a few teams where they were slowly crossing the picket line, one player at a time.
Yeah.
And Washington was the only team that held off.
Yeah.
And they completely used replacement players and won 3 of their 4 games and actually went on to win the Super Bowl that year, even though...
Tommy Thayer, former right guard for the Chicago Football Bears, he swears up and down if it hadn't been that strike that year, they'd have repeated.
They may have. Who knows? But
because he said that was a better team than the '86 Super Bowl winner, and they were better coached, and they had a better defense. And he swore up and down that 4 or 5 week break in the middle of the season because the replacements didn't keep up. They didn't win as many, and that kept them out of the playoffs.
It's loosely based on that strike, but the movie itself is hilarious in so many aspects.
Yeah, it's really well crafted and well done, and
Gene Hackman's great.
And the subplot where not only are the players striking, so are the cheerleaders. So the cheerleaders.
So they have to hire new cheerleaders.
They have to hire new cheerleaders, and they just get a bunch of strippers to come in and be the cheerleaders.
That girl's been shaking her ass for 2 minutes. Surprisingly enough, the guy that says that in that movie is a coach of the the fake New Orleans Saints because they're the black and gold team in that league.
Well, there's I don't know if you noticed
the same assistant coach from Any Given Sunday. He's like, "Come on, coach, what do you want me to do here with this guy?"
I don't know if you noticed.
He's wearing the same sunglasses and everything. I'm just like, "Oh, they just picked him up and put him in another movie."
A lot of those opposing coaches that were in the replacement were actual former NFL players.
Yeah, there's quite a few. The funny thing about those two movies is they actually used a lot of the same talent for both movies, and those movies were only like filmed 2 years apart.
Well, that's because Hollywood can't. What was it? Was it the late '90s where we had to have a Mars movie? So Warner Brothers had a Mars movie.
Yeah,
and 20th Century Fox had a Mars movie. They just can't do it. Like when Marvel started making, Warner Brothers goes, "Wait a minute, we got bring out DC, damn it!" Because they just can't let something be. They got to try and compete.
I feel like 98 to 2005, we got a whole shit ton of football movies.
Yeah, we did. So that's your number 2, right?
So your 3 is my 2. So what's your 2?
My 2 is The Express. The Ernie Davis.
Oh, wow.
The Ernie Davis story. Back to your comment about the way they interacted, the Titans, and the racial tensions that were going on. Ernie Davis is the first black man to win the Heisman Trophy. He played for the Syracuse Orangemen, won the Heisman, and never took one snap at the professional level. He died of leukemia.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the movies that were made in those days were very socially motivated.
Social awareness, yeah.
Yeah, social awareness. I mean, they're trying to break borders, which is, I mean, that's a great thing to do as a storyteller. Inspire people, instill some emotion in them, make them feel it. Yeah. It's a good thing as a creator, I think, and they showed, to inspire.
They showed the Orangemen and what they went through because they had Ernie Davis was one of the early integrated NCAA teams was Syracuse, and they went, was it with the Orange Bowl, I think? They went down to Texas for the Orange Bowl, and they wouldn't let Ernie and the 2 other black guys on the team stay at the team hotel. They had them in a separate hotel. And then when it came time for the award ceremony for the Orange Bowl because they won, the restaurant wouldn't let them in the restaurant because they were black kids.
Yeah, so that was the exact same story in Remember the Titans. After they were done with their big kind of playoff game, they went to go have dinner and they got kicked out because there was black players on the team.
Yeah, and I don't know, because you're in Canada, I don't know if you notice or see the same things we see down here. My mom was a public school teacher. My dad was a union electrician. My parents, the town I live in is a small town, 3,200 people. The high school I went to had 475 students total. But there was a neighboring community that's a very impoverished all-black community, and my school was about a third white, a third black, and a third Hispanic. And this is in the 70s. So that was pretty progressive for its time. But I'm watching how media today is I'm not going to dispute there is racism, but there's also the politics of racism.
Yes. And
we need to fix racism and push the politics of racism out the window.
No, I agree with that.
And these movies like Remember the Titans and the Express are addressing racism without getting into the politics of racism.
And there's a lot of politics.
Yeah,
and a lot of it's politically motivated. There's agendas there, obviously.
Well, and there are some people that their careers are based on keeping us apart.
Fair enough. Division. That's politics.
Yeah.
If we had some great politician that would be the next president or prime minister or mayor or whatever, everybody would agree unanimously. This guy's awesome. Let's vote him in. But it's always one guy's agenda versus another guy's agenda, and how can we divide these people to get more votes?
And that drives me crazy. I I'm sick and tired of holding my nose and voting for the lesser of two evils. Matter of fact, I didn't vote the last two presidential cycles because I'm not going to get pulled into that. You have to choose one bad person or another bad person. I'm tired of that.
Oh, so Taylor and Travis didn't devote for their conspiracy theory that we talked about.
Well, you never know.
A couple episodes ago.
They could do it later. It might be coming.
They didn't drop it right after the big Super Bowl win. Hey,
but they
we're
may
voting
be
for Bernie Sanders.
they may be waiting till September when the November election comes, so it's fresh in your minds. You do it in February and it's 6 months old, and you're going to forget.
I think it's all bullshit anyway. I think they're just trying to live their lives and trying to navigate where they're going next.
I would hope so. And one of the news stories that came up on my feed today was Travis decided not to go with Tay-Tay for her Asian tour. So fucking what? The guy just got done playing a grueling 20-week season of football.
He probably can't.
Yeah, he probably can't move right now.
He probably can't sit on a plane and just be like
for 19
and be
hours,
comfortable
for 19 hours. Even if it's a private plane, because she's got a couple of her own. Still, that's a long time to sit and be still. He probably physically, like you said, just cannot do it.
And then he's got other obligations with his brother and stuff. So
yeah. So, and then Then the next story was Taylor Swift wears her wears her Kansas City Chiefs cap out to play golf in Japan or Korea or wherever.
I mean,
so what?
First year in the league and she wins the Super Bowl. Let's go.
She should get Rookie of the Year. She should have got Rookie of the Year. So that brings us to our number ones. What's your number one?
Newer movie. I like Draft Day.
Do you?
That's probably my favorite movie just because
I could watch Jennifer Gardner read the phone book.
I mean, a lot of people can. But Kevin Costner is an unbelievable actor, and he actually makes me believe that he is that character. Every time he's on the screen, he makes me believe that he's Sonny Weaver, the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. Like, I had to look up the general manager of the Cleveland Browns because I couldn't believe it wasn't Sonny Weaver. Like, he made me believe it. And then there's so much talent. There's so many on-air personalities in that movie. Plus we got Chadwick Boseman playing, one of the most pivotal characters, and he's gone now. So,
was it Devontae?
Yeah, Devontae Mack.
Devontae Mack, yeah.
Or Vontae, just Vontae.
Vontae, yeah. But no,
Vontae Mack.
He's actually because I watched Black Panther and then I was like, wait, where do I know this guy from? And it hit me from Draft
He looks
Day.
completely different.
Yeah.
He looks completely different, and we got Terry Crews in there, and we've got a whole bunch of football personalities in that movie.
Diddy's there.
And it's just
Diddy's
fantastic.
an agent, yeah.
It's just fantastic to watch, like, the Cleveland Browns deal with the Seattle Seahawks fictitiously, and like somebody was a genius and got all the licensing for these NFL teams and probably had to pass it all off through the NFL
I'm sure
to make sure it was okay.
Yeah, I'm sure the league had to sign off on it across the board, yeah.
Right? Like, can we put the Seattle Seahawks in this light? And just so many things, many moving parts in that movie.
You know how they got it done? They put Roger Goodell in the film and didn't make him look bad.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's my number one. I think it's a fantastic movie. If you are jonesing for some football, especially with the draft coming in like 9 weeks, that's a great movie to kind of steer yourself out of football mode.
My number one, it's been remade, but I hate the remake. The 1974 classic, Burt Reynolds' Longest Yard.
Oh, yes. So I was just talking about this one with the wife earlier, and I was just like, it's funny, The Longest Yard was remade. Burt Reynolds was the original Adam Sandler, and then when Adam Sandler came in, they had Burt Reynolds play an extra part.
Well, they had, and I
was just like, that's awesome.
The original is so well crafted and so well done, and there's 3 or 4 subplots going on along with the main plot, and they keep circling back to the main plot, and it's just brutal and nasty, and they're beating the hell out of one another, and they're smiling and giggling the whole time.
Yeah, so the remake of that movie feels like a cross between The Waterboy and Happy Gilmore.
That's because Adam Sandler can't do anything without being a clown. It's physically impossible for him not to be a clown.
Oh, he's had some. Like, he's matured as an actor in the last couple of movies he's done. You don't recognize him really as Adam Sandler anymore, but he's not that goofy like, you know.
He's not always singing the Hanukkah song.
He's not, or doing the Cajun Man or whatever whatever his thing is, whatever shtick is that week.
Do you remember? There's something going on. Every time I turn my head to the right, I lose my left ear. There was one Saturday Night Live bit that they've actually pulled from the reruns. Alec Baldwin was the guest host that week, and it was Canteen.
Sweaty Balls?
No, Canteen Boy.
Oh, Canteen Boy. So that was the Cajun Man. That's what Waterboy was all based on.
Ah, I just figured out my problem.
Oh, you losing a connection there?
My cable is chewed up. There's little cat teeth in it.
Kitty.
My daughter's new cat is starting to discover dangling cables. I'm going to have to kill her. I hope she's not going to miss it too much.
Those headphone cables aren't cheap.
Well, and these are the V-Moda headphones. These are the original V-Moda cables. They're gold plated on the end, and they're the braided, the braided shielding.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and now I'm going to have to fucking buy another headset. Sorry. But at least I figured out
that
my
cable's
little problem.
replaceable, is it not?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Amazon, I'm surprised at the cheap shit that I get off of Amazon. I'm just surprised at the quality of it sometimes. Just like, I got to break down. This was a gold-plated cable. It had, like, soldered gold terminals, blah, 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 blah. I buy this, like, Chinese one for $3.99, and it actually sounds better than the original.
Well,
I don't get it.
Well, that's because it's not branded. The brand name isn't on there. They're getting it from the exact same sweatshop in China.
Yeah.
It's the same little kid, Hing Hong Ting Tong, made it. He made 3 of them that day, and you got the one that didn't have the label on it.
Yeah, fair enough. I didn't get the Beats by Dre version.
I'm gonna
or the Sony version.
This is gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna.
All right, so that rounds out our top 5 movies. If you're itching for some football and you can't get out of the football mode and you're wondering if football misses you as much as we miss it, you can listen to us. So you can watch some football stuff. We're still going to talk football. We've got so many things to talk about with football, and I mean it's over. Yesterday was a really desolate day for me, by the way. Sundays are tough now.
See, and mine would have been normally what we talked about, Adam and I, is once the season's over, recording on Sunday to kind of fill that void. And I'm sorry I wasn't there for you yesterday, brother.
That's okay.
My oldest shows up out of the blue, and I love my daughters, don't get me wrong, but my oldest is kind of a free spirit. She works she works in a marijuana dispensary. That's her career. So I'll give you an idea. She shows up at my house reeking of whatever the deal of the day is at the dispensary and patchouli oil. And she comes in with her little boho skirt on and she sits down. She goes, "Hi, Pops. I wanted to come say hi." And I don't know if she's going to stay a minute or for 2 days. And then like 3 hours into the visit, she goes, "What's for dinner, Dad?"
What are you making for dinner, Pops?
maybe let your old man know you're coming so he can buy enough food for everybody. Because I wasn't planning on feeding everybody, just me and Selena. So that's what happened yesterday. And by the time she left, it was too late to.
That's all good. We're recording now, and I'm happy about it. So I did ask you during our discussions to give me a top 5 shows or series about football as well, because we got to get into that.
I really don't. I
vibe,
don't watch episodic television. Is the problem?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if you watched something in the past. I could throw a couple out there.
I know Friday Night Lights was supposed to be one of the better series.
Friday Night Lights was very good. So right now, I can tell you what's out there. The Dynasty is on Apple TV. It's a weekly episode coming out about the 20-year Patriots dynasty, if you're into that sort of thing. For me, I'm a fan, so...
Amazon Prime, if you haven't watched yet on Amazon Prime, the Barry Sanders, Run, Barry, Run.
Yeah, so that's a great one too. I had that on my list. That was fantastic. Another one that you and I have both watched is Quarterback on Netflix. Where they follow three quarterbacks, one of them being the world champion Patrick Mahomes.
I like Kirk Cousins so much more after watching that.
Right? He just seems. I love listening to him get really upset on the sidelines. The guy never swears. He's so
even keel. He's the same guy every day. Yeah.
He's so purely Christian. He's like, geez, golly, gosh darn it. He's like Ned Flanders, but in quarterback form.
Gosh darn diddly Italy football. Golly, golly, diddly diddly Italy.
So that's a good one too. I really enjoyed. I think that was like 8 or 10 episodes where they followed Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, and of course the world champion Patrick Mahomes. That was excellent. That was an excellent series to watch because you get to watch a guy that's in his prime, came off the bench as a rookie and has done nothing but magic. A second guy that's middle-aged, struggling to do stuff in the league, still has it, but the team doesn't have all the pieces. And then you've got a third guy that's been, he's been a starter, he's been a backup, he's kind of been all over the league. And what's his next move? And there's three completely different perspectives on the quarterback position in the NFL, and I think they're all awesome.
One of the guys who started for the Bears, Jim Miller, good old number 15, he does a lot of media, radio and television. He's an analyst. He does Westwood One's Monday Night Football, color analyst, And when he's not doing the analyst thing, he talks about his journey in the NFL because he wasn't a high draft pick. However, he wound up starting for 2 years for the Bears. He was the main starter. And after he left the Bears, he went to Pittsburgh, and he talked about that journey and how, going from the Bears. And he kind of walked into the Pittsburgh facility and basically begged for the job. And how after he lost that position, he drove from one end of the country to another, just going to different training camps, hoping to catch on somewhere with some team. So, and he said it's not just quarterbacks that do that either. It's kickers, it's linemen, it's wide receivers, it's linebackers. It's if you're not that top 2,000 players we talked about last week, if you're not one of those 2,000 elites, you spend a lot of time knocking on doors and making phone calls and driving, just trying to get on somewhere doing something.
I believe it. We see it every year where we're just like, how did he end up on this team? Or how is he like the third string quarterback? We didn't even know he was on this team. We just thought he disappeared. Mm-hmm. We thought he retired or something. And then he comes out because the first two strings are injured. And you're just like, that's where that guy went from 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It happens a lot. Joe Flacco is a prime example of that.
Yeah. So the league that we both love and the game we both enjoy watching, it's a meat grinder. You go in 21, 22 years old, and if you're not playing after 25, you're hustling trying to find something somewhere.
Oh, and to follow up on a previous episode, the number of players on a practice squad is 16.
16. So,
yeah,
a little over 2,000 total players in the league.
So the other shows and series that I have on here, I've got two reality follows the team around shows. One's on Amazon called All or Nothing. They followed a bunch of teams around. I think there's 3 or 4 seasons of that where they follow, the Jets one year. They followed the Panthers another year. Hard Knocks, which is kind of where All or Nothing came from. That's on HBO.
I was going to say All or Nothing sounds like a discount Hard Knocks.
Yeah, it's definitely a Wish version of Hard Knocks, but it's still very well put together. Hard Knocks is amazing, especially this year's.
Hard Knocks is kind of pushed a little bit by the league. So when you're one of the final 3 or 4 teams that they're considering, the league gets involved and starts negotiating with you to get you to do this.
So this year Hard Knocks they usually do a training camp. That's based on how the show is. It's just they do training camp with whatever team it is. Last year they did the Detroit Lions, and it was fantastic. And you really started to feel for the Lions. Like you were just like, wow, they're really working hard. They didn't have the greatest season. They started off really rough. Then they ended up winning, and they almost made the playoffs. And then, obviously, this year, the Lions had a good run after Hard Knocks. So this year, Hard Knocks did training camp with the Jets and how great Aaron Rodgers was going to be, which just made it hilarious to watch him, play 3 plays and just not play for the rest of the season. That was wild.
I was totally okay with that. I was...
And then they did mid-season, which they don't do very often. Hard Knocks mid-season, they followed the Miami Dolphins around for 8 episodes, which was crazy fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, because that's back when they were mid-season. That's when they were starting to hit their stride, man.
Yeah, they go right into the playoffs. They go right into past Christmas, into the playoffs with the Miami Dolphins. And it's wild to watch. And you see it from the players' perspective, not just what we're watching on the TV. And I'm just like, I've seen this episode, I'm in Back to the Future. Oh yeah, I've seen this one.
Well, what was the Ravens head coach? Brian. He won 1 Super Bowl. Brian Ball.
The Ball?
No. Hang on.
Who won the Super Bowl? You got to look it up. Don't you have that Google machine in front of you?
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
So yeah, that was. I mean, these shows were fantastic.
Brian Billick. Because there was one year that they followed the Ravens, and he would bring these players into his office to talk to them, and it was basically just to cut them. But it was players
that's hard to watch.
The first 2 times you saw it, it was just like you saw Brian's back as he talked to the players because they wanted to capture the players' reaction as Brian breaks news to them. After the second guy got fired, you notice there's a mirror next to the guy so you can see Billick's face because that's just how fucking egotistical he is. He wants to be on the camera too.
So that is what I've got for series. I know you don't watch a lot of that stuff, so I threw it up there just for the diehard footballers. I mean, I am a huge football guy. I'm still not out of the mode yet. I've probably watched 4 football movies and 2 series this week already, just because I need to get that fix, and I'm not ready to let it go just yet. There's a couple things I want to touch on with news. We never touched on it last week because it just happened on Wednesday, but Kansas City has a Super Bowl parade and there's a shooting.
It's sounding like and it's looking like that was not a terror thing. It was just
no. They've arrested 2 juveniles, which is sad because they can't be prosecuted to the full extent of the law because of the rules of the state.
Yeah,
but
because it sounds
which is bad because people were injured and stuff.
It sounds like these 2 juveniles had a personal beef that rolled over and affected the crowd.
It's really sad.
It is. But that just brings up all the other
misguided Utes, as our buddy Joe Pesci would say.
Yeah, the 2 Utes.
The Utes. The 2 Utes.
It that just reignited something that goes on here every time there's a very public crime with firearm use. And that's the gun debate. And that just gets back to the politics thing where, come on. Okay, one side wants to have total gun control, and the other side wants to have mental health. Here's an idea. Why don't the 2 of you fuckers get together, compromise, do both, and don't make it all or nothing, and we might get something done. But the fact
we have a similar system here. Gun violence happens, and it doesn't happen that often here because our laws are very strict as it is. And I mean, you can't open carry in Canada. Really, you can't. So any gun has a crime, that's involved in a crime, is an illegal gun to begin with. And then they say, okay, now we're going to punish legal gun owners because this guy shot up a church or something, right?
Yeah, and I that's kind of where I fall. I live in Illinois, which is a far left state. If the governor had his way, there would be no guns, no guns.
Yeah, they just don't even give us a choice. They just take more and more rights away because it's like, oh, guns bad. See, and I get that logic, and I see that logic, and I understand the concern, the safety for everybody. But the other side of the coin is
if I decided to go out and buy a pistol, I've never committed a crime and I don't have an evil bone in my body, and you're going to tell me no? You know?
It's not your right anymore because somebody shot up the Kansas City parade, the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade, so now you can't have one.
That's the logic.
And that's the biggest problem. Yeah. Is like we're not addressing things like
we're not fixing
their mental state. They're who knows? Maybe they're orphan children. I don't know what their state is. Like maybe they grew up without a dad. They didn't have any role models. I don't know.
Yeah, and that gets back to the point I made a second ago about okay, you want to work on the gun control. Let's address the mental health as well. Let's get both of them. They
don't work on both. They work on one or the other so that they can divide you so they can get the votes.
Yeah.
And here we go again. We're talking politics, and I swore we wouldn't do that.
No, but that's just that every time there's a big nasty occurrence like this public one with the Kansas City deal, and then after the fact, there are people all upset because Travis Kelce was seen partying after the shooting. Come on.
They went to they weren't partying. They went to a restaurant to eat. They probably hadn't eaten all day.
Yeah, I'm sure. He looked pretty.
I mean, Patrick was probably drunk because he had like 4 or 5 Coors Lattes.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm sure they were probably having some apple juice on the bus, and Well,
you could see them in the parade. They were like there was no hiding that Patrick Mahomes likes his Coors Light, the silver bullets, man.
Well, sure. And you got the cool can that turns blue when it's cold. I mean, you can't beat it.
When the mountains are blue, it's good to drink, right?
Right, yeah. So, attaboy, Patrick. And did you see Patrick's wife is now a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model?
Oh, I did not catch that.
Yeah, she became a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model this year. So
they'll just take anybody now. Holy jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, she had to keep up with Tay-Tay. So,
all right. So I have a question for you.
Hopefully, I have an answer.
So Super Bowl 59. I know we're 20 or 51 weeks away. 50 and a half weeks away, I guess. Maybe 51. We'll say 51. We're a year away, give or take a week. If you have to choose 5 teams other than the Kansas City Chiefs, because we already know the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be blowing their wad and using every ounce of cap space to get the ultimate team to try to three-peat.
Right, because Patrick's already said he wants the three-peat.
Yeah, they're going to spend all their money, and they're going back to the show in their minds. So if you've got to pick 5 teams that are going to the show that are not Kansas City, who do you got?
Ravens, number 1, Ravens.
Yeah, you think the revenge tour?
Yeah, and I don't think they're happy with the way that ended with the Niners. My next one I think would be for the exact same reasons. Bills. I think Josh Allen's got that huge chip and he wants to get there so bad.
So it's funny you say that. I have the Bills on my list as well. There was a YouTube video I was watching where somebody analyzed all 41 interceptions or whatever it was that Josh Allen threw. And it was during the season, and it wasn't 41, but there's a big number.
A big number, but it dropped off noticeably when they switched offensive coordinators.
Yes, but they showed the impact of every interception, and pretty much there was like almost no points scored off of every interception they threw.
Yeah, but
there was almost no impact. So I was just like, oh wow, like we see it as a stat because the announcers pump these stats and they're just like, oh, that's his like 300th interception since he's entered the league, and it's just like, wow, that's bad. That's not a good thing. But it's points on the board, and nobody looks at the game, the box score at the end, right?
Right.
Like, what difference did it make? And it made almost no impact. Like their defense did stops, the other team fucked up, whatever it may be. They didn't put points on the board based on the interceptions that he threw. So, yeah, Bills is on my list. I think they can get there.
Bengals, if Joe Burrow is healthy.
I have Bengals on my list as well. Joe Burrow will be back. He's going to be on a revenge tour. He's going to be super healthy. Chase will be with him. Are we going to see T. Higgins? T. Higgins is a free agent. Let's see what Cincinnati can do we'll do some more analyzation on that stuff over the next couple weeks on what teams are good to go to the playoffs, have a Super Bowl chance, which teams need to spend a couple more years rebuilding.
I'm racking my brain here, and without obvious NFC teams, Lions, Niners.
Yeah, Lions is on my list as well. I don't have the Niners on my list at all.
The NFC is just, it's kind of a barren wasteland compared to the AFC.
I see the Rams taking out the Niners this year or next season.
Yeah, when you say take out, do you mean in a playoff run, or they keep them out of the playoffs altogether?
Either or. So Rams would be the division leader or the division. They get in from the divisional win. They might still see the 49ers in the playoffs. Either the 49ers get taken out in the first round, or the Rams are going to do it.
See, and Lions. We talked about the Lions, and God, this hurts. Depending on what happens in Green Bay, I think they've got a chance at making a pretty good, solid run, but I don't think they're quite there for Super Bowl yet.
I see a real dark horse this year, which I can't believe I'm saying this. Chargers.
I think this year they'll make a big storm. I really do, but I think next year, the year after Harbaugh's second year in, I bet they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
The reason I'm saying Chargers is they don't have the problems that a lot of teams in the league do with cap space and stuff. So they can make some real moves this year, and they already have an established quarterback in Justin Herbert. And if you remember 2 playoffs ago, it was a shootout.
He's a generational talent for sure.
If they can put some pieces around him and bolster their defense a little bit more, they could be a real competitor.
I agree.
And I think they're pissed off with the season that they had, and they're going to come back in full force. And sure, they're not 100% there based on what we saw this season that just passed.
Right.
But the season previously, they were looking really good. Like they had the pieces in place.
Well, and it'll take Harbaugh a year, not just to figure out what he wants to do out there, but to get his pieces in place too. There's going to be some personnel changes there, not just on the coaching staff, players as well.
I think the Chargers get in the playoffs, and they could make it to the Super Bowl with a little bit of luck.
And I'm not buying into the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to do this again. We're going to change things, because Mike McCarthy is not known to be an insightful, I'm going to change things up, and I'm not going to be inspired. He's a grind it out, do what works kind of guy.
The Cowboys will never be on my list. I'm sorry. I see a lot of money being put in the wrong places there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They spend a pile of money, but
I don't. The Eagles had a great regular season, but they fell apart in the playoffs in a surefire quick hurry.
I don't know what happened there. I'm still kind of trying to go back and watch like pieces of it. And Miguel, I'm sorry if you're listening, bud. Like, he's a huge Eagles fan. He actually hit me up yesterday and said he wanted to be on our NFC East version. Yeah. So, and that's going to hit around St. Patty's Day if the schedule's looking right, depending on what happens. But yeah, what happened to the Eagles? Like, why did everybody fall off the map? Like, what happened to A.J. Brown? Why did he suck? Why did Jalen Hurts start sucking? Like, why did everybody just look
I think,
awful at once?
I think Brown is a free agent at the end of the year. I think.
Yeah, I think they had him on a 1-year deal because he came from the Titans. The Titans gave him away.
Yeah, but I think.
And then they fired Vrabel because they got rid of their fucking star wide receiver. Like,
yeah,
Jesus.
But I'm wondering if maybe he was like, I'm done. I can see this is going nowhere, and he just
he was playing a little injured too. So there's that, and we don't know. Some of these guys go out and they play even better when they're injured because they've got something to prove.
True.
And then other guys are just like, I've already got the big contract, and I'm not going to hurt myself anymore. They have different diva mentalities.
And I want our boy Baker I want to see him do well. I don't know if the Buccaneers can get very deep in the playoffs right now. So I don't know who my other two would be.
Well, they got a big problem right now because Mike Evans becomes a free agent come the new league year, which is halfway through March. I don't know the exact date. I think it's the 11th.
I think you're right.
But he is gotten 1,000 yards for 10 consecutive years. He's the only player, I believe, to do that since he came into the league. Every year that he's played, 1,000 yards. He's currently worth about $21 million a year. The Bucs have $80 million of dead cap, so they're not going to be able to afford to pay him unless they franchise tag him. And his franchise tag is going to cost them $27 million a year, so an extra $6 million. By the looks of it, who knows how they work things out. I think they want to keep him. I think Mike Evans wants to be a Buck, but he also played his career for Texas A&M and his college career for Texas A&M. And the Texans right now could really use a good wide receiver.
I can see him going to Houston, yeah. And
why wouldn't you want to go home?
And unless they draft a quarterback, the Buccaneers, I mean, they got Baker on a one-year deal.
They have a problem there. They got to pay a quarterback and they got to pay their star wideout.
Yeah, so that's an interesting. That'll be fun to watch and see what they do down there.
Well, we'll look at that when we get to the NFC South.
Yeah.
Right, which is NFC South is quite a ways away. We're into like April before we even talk about those guys. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about next week. If anybody's interested, we're going to start our path for good. We'll sit them, bench them, start them, all that sort of stuff for 4 different teams in the NFC or the AFC North. We're going to start with the AFC North, and we're going to do it like a compass. So we're going to go AFC North, then NFC North.
And there's already a little bit of
Southwest.
drama going on in the AFC North with the Pittsburgh Steelers and their quarterback situation because they cut Mitch Trubisky this week, and there's rumors that they want to get Justin Fields, but there's also
rumors that they're going to get Kirk Cousins.
Well, but there's longtime Steeler insiders who point out repeatedly the Steelers are not the team to go out and pick up a free agent quarterback or trade for an existing quarterback. They want to draft and develop. That's been their MO since their inception. So there's some discrepancy there, and there's a little bit of drama there. So that'll be fun to talk about.
There's a lot of drama, I think, this time of year, and I think a lot of it's just kind of media generated drama because there's nothing else to talk about.
You got to have something to do, absolutely. Just like us.
Like if you look at the Newswire today in the NFL, there's basically 2 things that happened. The linebacker Nick Bolton was fined $8,200 for the horse collar tackle on Brock Purdy at the Super Bowl, and Lawrence Guy is being released from the New England Patriots. I'm kind of shocked.
We can't talk about the fine without bringing up Jimmy Garoppolo's performance enhancing drug.
Okay, that was Friday or Saturday?
Yeah. Was it hair growth hormones or was it the blue pill?
The little blue pill? Was it the Vigera?
But yeah, he that whatever it was, because I'm sure it was something non-football related. Why would he be on a performance enhancing drug if he's not playing?
I also want to know why is he getting random drug tests if he's not playing?
No, it's just that random. You walk in and there's but
guy hasn't taken a snap for like 10 weeks.
But that cost him a lot of money. That cost him a lot of money in free agency. He will not be able to go to teams and ask for whatever he thinks he's worth because their first response is going to be, "How do we know you're not going to get suspended again?"
Well, I don't think the Raiders have released him as of yet.
No, but that was.
But it's coming.
It's coming, and they kind of announced it when they cut the head coach midseason. They told him he was benched, and basically told him he wouldn't play another snap unless of an injury. So he knows.
I would like to add the Raiders to my Super Bowl 59 list, but I think it's really too soon.
It is, and I want to see. A lot of coaches were really good and popular interim coaches. But when they got to the regular season, they weren't as successful. So I'm interested to see what happens there.
we've got a lot to talk about over the next 10 weeks. Now, for our football people that are trying to get out of the football vibe, because there's only so many movies and series that they can watch. I mean, if they want to, they could binge probably everything we talked about in a week. What do you got for them for non-football stuff to get them off the crack, get them off the meth?
For my friends out there who stream, I'm going to recommend you go download the Pluto TV app.
I have that. I've been checking that out. They have like every episode of Cheers just over and over and over.
I'm a big science fiction fan. You know that we've talked. I've sent you pictures of my models and shit.
Yep.
There's a Star Trek the original series channel, and right below it is more Trek. So Star Trek the original series channel does the original series and the Next Generation, and the one below it does Voyager and Deep Space Nine. I'm a huge
GS9.
I'm a huge Deep Space Nine guy. I admit those first 2 seasons are kind of a slag. You kind of got to power through it, but once that Dominion War kicks off, oh my fucking god, I love it.
A lot of shows I found that people raved about, they're just like, you got to watch this show. And it's always like the first season or the first 2 seasons are just like, you just got to swallow the vomit. You just got to like just choke it down, be like, this is awful, and just be like, gulp. Let's go. And then you get to like season 2.5, 3, and you're just like, wow, this is really good now, and I'm glad that I stuck it out.
When I turn on Deep Space Nine, if Cisco's got hair, I'm turning it off.
The one thing that I did do to try to get off the junk this week, and when I say the junk, it's football. You know, I've been mainlining football
for the niffle
for 24 weeks or whatever it is.
The
right?
niffle, yeah. Yeah, that's that's. I feel like I'm going to be on the street
half a year.
Yeah.
So we talked about Super Bowl commercials last week, and I said, these are the movies that came out, and I said, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Do we really need another Apes movie?
I think we do.
So
obviously we do.
That was a question that I threw out there, and I didn't realize it was a question I was asking myself because I'd never actually watched the new Apes movies.
Some of them are pretty good.
So I went out and I decided to research the Planet of the Apes, and man, there is a lot of Planet of the Apes movies. The original series has like 5 or 6 movies.
Yep, and not the Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes.
The Mark Wahlberg movie is a one-off.
It's a one-off.
That's a 2001 where they land on a Planet of Apes. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different scenario than what Planet of the Apes was based on originally.
Right. So
then I get into the 2011.
You take the Mark Wahlberg one and you put it on an island all by itself.
I never even watched it. I saw it show up, and I was just like, I don't remember watching this movie. It is Marky Mark, so I'll probably end up go watch it anyway because I just find his movies amusing for whatever reason.
He's always so serious.
Yeah, it's just like, and he's such a small guy that's like jacked in every movie. Like he's like 5'5" or something. Like, he's a really tiny dude, but he's jacked. He looks like, the Incredible Hulk or something.
He's got that Napoleon complex going on, yeah.
So I started with the 2011 Rise of the Planet of the Apes. That's the actual first one in the new series, which this new movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, is that they showed at Super Bowl, is part of. So 2011, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I am attached to this movie right from the get-go. It has my attention. It was a fantastic movie. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think I would enjoy it.
And the guy...
I'm kind of a science fiction fan, though, too. So, I mean, if you don't like sci-fi and like things that are pretend, then
the guy who
it's not for you.
The actor who did the stop motion for the ape, for Caesar, is the same guy who did the stop motion for Gollum in the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Now I've lost his name.
I have two, and he played
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. He played Killmonger, and not Killmonger. He played in the Marvels. He was a bad guy in the Marvels.
He was the terrorist traitor guy that bought all Tony Stark's vibranium.
Yeah, that guy
was trying. I can't remember his name, and not either. But yes,
not the first one. It's the second or the third one. he's acting, and they're he's doing the stop motion acting stuff, or not stop motion, but the CGI stop motion acting. They're the second or third one. Watch his acting, because even through the CGI, that's fucking Oscar worthy performance, dude.
So the second one, again, just a different story than the first one. It's just a progression. It takes place 10 years after the first one, even though it's like 3 years movie, like timeline wise. It's 10 years for the story. Another fantastic movie. Third one. This is where you really see Andy Serkis as an ape.
That's the one I'm talking about. The emotion he portrays through that CGI.
Yeah, even the picture like they use for the still on the screenshot to say, hey, this is the big banner that we're using. I'm like, that ape looks exactly like him. Like,
it does.
That is totally his character, right?
It does.
So third one, fantastic as well. And that is kind of like Star Wars, where we had a initial trilogy and it came to completion. There's still more story to tell, just not with these characters. And that's where I get confused on so now that I've caught up, do we really need another Planet of the Apes? Probably not. That could have just been left alone. But I think what they're doing with this series is they're taking it based on the original 3 trilogy stories that they made, and they're going to build a new world and a new story off of it with a new cast of characters.
Right. Well, that's
because they're always advancing like 10 years in advance. And if you know anything about apes, they die. They're not like dinosaurs where they live, and turtles and stuff like that, where they live hundreds of years. Like apes die pretty regularly. They have a shelf life.
Yeah, they have a lifespan similar to ours. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think that's where they're going with it. And do we need another Planet of the Apes? You'll have to watch that movie in theaters to tell me if we actually do or not.
They kind of did something similar with the original 70s Planet of the Apes. There was the first 3 that were... The first one was obviously groundbreaking, and it set the tone. And then there was a second 3, and the second 3 were more campy and more silly. And you went from Charlton Heston to Tony Francioso.
Yeah, but they were like mid-70s disco ape movies. Yeah, they were a lot different. You can tell by just the artwork.
Yep.
You were like, oh, is this from the same series, or did they like reboot it? But they didn't really reboot movies back then. So
there was, if you can find it someplace on the YouTube, I'm sure.
On the Tubi.
Roddy McDowell, or no, it was John Williams. No, not John Williams. Who was he was a 70s singer. Paul Williams, the blonde-haired guy, glasses. He was in the Planet of the Apes as an ape, and he was running late, and he shows up for his interview with Johnny Carson in full ape makeup. And he sits down to do his interview with Johnny, and Johnny's just cracking up because Paul Williams is sitting there cracking jokes and being regular Paul Williams, but he's got the fucking.
But he's dressed up as an ape, and it's hard to. Yeah, you're just like, what the hell? What's going on?
So it's kind of fun to watch if you want to go dig it up.
So, other than that, I really don't have any other recommendations. Just because this was based on this was the last week. This was like I said, do we need it? I went and I watched, and they're all long movies. They're 2.5 hours or better each. So I have like almost 8 hours invested in Planet of the Apes for you guys. So, and I'm sure I talked to a couple friends of mine, and I said, have you ever seen the Apes movies? And they're like, oh yeah, a long time ago. And I was just like, yeah, I've never dove in like ever. I had no interest.
They're starting a new Kong storyline too, if you're into the whole King Kong Godzilla thing. So
they have a series on Apple TV, and I think it's called Monarch or something like that.
Yeah, that's a series, but there's also a new Kong Godzilla.
They're building off those original stories with that series. They're trying to get everybody tied into different streaming services. They're like, oh, you liked it on Disney Plus, now come over to Apple because we bought the rights for 10 episodes or whatever. And buy all our stuff.
Another thing I'm looking forward to help me get my methadone fix, because I'm going to get off the heroin and get hooked on methadone instead.
I can't get off the junk yet.
The second part of Dune is coming out next month down here, and I'm a big
so that looks good too.
And I'm a huge Frank Herbert fan, the author of the original Dune. I read all of his books, and then his son had a bunch of notes. And his son and another author did another 6 books, and I've read them all. The Butlerian Jihad, and you know, and there's I'm a huge Dune fan. I really am. And Denis Villeneuve did a really good job with the first part, and they cut off that fight with Jameis is halfway through the book. So you're going to get the second half of the book in Dune 2.
Another series that I'm not sure if it's still on Netflix or not, that people might like if they're into sci-fi and they're trying to get off the NFL junk. Altered Carbon. It's a couple years old, but it's worth a watch. It's a very fun watch. It's kind of like cyberpunk style sci-fi.
Well, back to my recommendation to download the Pluto app. There's a sci-fi channel on the Pluto app. And for like 5 hours every day, there's the old black and white Twilight Zone episodes run. So if you want to watch those,
and even the Jordan Peele new Twilight Zone's good too.
Yeah,
if you want to catch that. So yeah, there's lots of stuff to watch, but like, how do we get everybody's so different, right? And then, you know, we also have to break ourselves from watching television as well. Like part of the football aspect of it is it's cold, it's winter. We're in northern climates. It's not like we're in Florida or California or anything where we can just go surfing or whatever in December. You know, we got to stay inside, bundled up a lot of the time. TV's kind of it's a pastime for us. It's just like, oh yeah, like we're home, we're safe, we're warm. Turn on the TV and like waste some time. What else can we do now that it's warming up? Like everybody, we're going to get into the summertime soon, but we've got that kind of desolate, oh my God, is winter going to continue to happen?
Can you see I just changed the webcam? This is one of the things I did over the weekend. I built my Lego Dune ornithopter.
There we go.
This Lego Dune ornithopter, dude, when I got the wings fully expanded, they're 3 feet wide.
You gotta drop a picture of that, a good picture of that on the Straight Off the Couch page on Facebook, so that anybody that's actually listening to this goes, "What the fuck? This has nothing to do with football."
But it's so cool. They're Legos. How we could have a show about Legos until football comes back.
Yeah, we could. I've got a lot of friends that are into Legos. I've got Legos everywhere. I've got Legos sitting here. I've got interesting Legos too. So, I'm a big collector of Lego men, Lego minifigs that wear suits. So like Hot Dog Man, Unicorn Guy, like the full body suits.
Come on, Batman, stand up. There you go.
You got Batman. I got tons of Batman, Superman, all that stuff too. So
my entire studio here, there's all Batman.
So we went from a football podcast to a sci-fi movie watching podcast to a collectibles podcast in one episode.
You know, that just tells you how bored we are without football. We're so desperate to fill in that void. You know,
we need something. So outside time. I mean, it's always good to get out. Take the dog for a walk, that sort of thing. And if you don't have a dog, maybe start a dog walking business. Borrow somebody else's dog, make some money. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, definitely that football void's hard. I mean, the first Sunday without football was just, man, it killed me. It killed me.
It probably would have been a lot more painful for me, but I was dealing with patchouli oil. Yeah. We'll just cut it. Anyway, we're back. So that's it for this week, boys and girls.
Yeah, so next week we're back talking football again. AFC North, the do's, the don'ts, who's got a chance, who don't. We'll talk about all the analysis and in-depth dive on that. We're going to do that for the next couple weeks on each division. If you want to get a hold of us, Straight Off the Couch Podcast at gmail.com, or you can hit us up on our Facebook page, Straight Off the Couch. Hit me up personally on X, the tweet, and it's Adam Off the Couch there. How about you, Terry?
You can find me at TREMUP. That's TREMUP on the X or the Twitter or whatever the fuck they're calling it this month.
The tweet deck.
The tweet deck. For my broadcast partner, my friend, the madman from the north, Adam. Everybody have a nice night. Be safe. God bless. Bye-bye, everybody.